So I've got this brake caliper. This thing came off of a 78 Toyota pickup. The calipers were seized. This is the original caliper. The pistons were just compressing the rotor so the vehicle just wouldn't move. But these calipers, you have to order them, and I'm trying to get the thing put back together without waiting 2 weeks for shipping. So what I'm doing is just basically freeing the pistons. So I want to show you how I'm doing that. I've already got this one. I've got a brake hose in the inlet side, and I'm just going to use compressed air with a pretty sharp nozzle. So when I apply pressure, I'm just using air instead of fluid, okay? But it's going to work the same way. It wants to push those pistons together. So you're going to see, since this one is freed, I already cleaned it and lubricated it. I've actually already popped that one out. Now I'm trying to get this one free. You can see all the corrosion that's around it. Let me zoom in. Okay, so here's the piston, and that's going to move that way. Okay, and what you want to see is when it's compressed, it should go out, and then as soon as you let the pressure off, it should come back ever so slightly. Maybe 1/8 of an inch, maybe a 1/16, maybe a 32nd would be sufficient. So I've just got the pads in there so it doesn't pop out all the way. I'm not quite ready for that. All right, I'm going to give it some air. Now you see the pads coming in. That's because the other side is free. So the pads are moving toward that other piston. So what I want to do to make sure that these pads don't stop this piston, I've got a U-bolt here that's just a little larger than the piston, but drops right down where the pads would go. So now the piston can slide kind of through the U-bolts. Just using what I got. Okay, we're starting to get a little bit of movement. Let me reposition the camera. Alright. So you can see this corroded bit right here. You're going to see that moving that way. Eesh. And as soon as you hear me let off of the air, you should see the piston retract slightly. Okay, you can see it's being stubborn. Make sure this U-bolt is not impeding movement. There it goes. There. So now I've got that piston freed up. Let me zoom out for you. Okay. I don't need a clamp to move this piston now, because that one's clean, and you should be able to just move it with your hand to compress it. So now you see I've got this traveled out about 1/3 of the way. So what I could do is drop a pad and a wrench in there. Okay, that's going to earn me just a little more travel. it goes. You kind of heard that clunk. So what I can do now, I'm going to hose this down with brake parts cleaner and put some lubricant on it and see if I can just work it back and forth a little bit. Eventually I'm going to pop this thing out and we'll take a look at that rubber seal that's in the caliper. Okay, I'm showing you can be pretty resourceful. I've got a clamp, just a carpenter's clamp on this side between the pad. The pads are hung in there with the pins, just like you're about to mount it in the car. But I've got this clamp and just a pair of pliers holding the pads back. So when this piston travels that way, it's going to be forced to stop right here. And that's going to give me this little bit of free room for this piston to move. So I'm going to give it some air, and you're going to see that piston extend. And when I let off the air, you'll see it retract slightly. See, about 1/16 of an inch or so. It withdraws, and that's what you want so it doesn't create drag on the rotor. All right. So now I can hose this down and clean it a little bit more and just keep working it until I'm ready to pop it out. Alright, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to hold this pad on the piston that's already clean and give it a little bit of air so the piston that I want to clean can pop out. Just do not trap your finger. It looks like that thing's not moving very much, but whenever it lets go, it will fly across the shop floor. So don't get your fingers in the way of that piston when you're doing this. See that? That was quite a bit of force. So now I can clean this piston and I can get down in that chamber and wipe that out real good. Put a little bit of lubricant on this piston and then pop it back in there and that'll be good as new. But when you get a rebuild kit for these things, it's going to have that dust seal, little boot on the outside. These are all torn up, but that just goes right there with a little snap ring basically. And the kit's going to have this like an O-ring right there, and it just beds down in that chamber to create a seal. So the rebuild is pretty simple. It's probably, you know, $5 per kit for a caliper. Not all calipers are built this way, where these, it's a 2-piston, they're moving toward each other. Some have 2 pistons on one side, some have 2 pistons on both sides, but basic construction, that's how you clean it.